Hi everyone, my name is Quinn. I've been living in Japan for 9 years now. I currently work as a talent acquisition specialist and recruiter here in Japan. If you're new here, I'm the person behind Foreign Professional, my newsletter that helps you find jobs in Japan, and then also Japan Job Scan. I spend a lot of time tracking what's actually happening in the Japan job market and trying to make the information accessible to people who want to build a life or career here. Today's video is one I've been meaning to make for a while. I get variations of the same question every single week in my inbox and in the comments, and it goes something like, I want to work in Japan, where do I even start? And the thing is, the answer to that question is very different depending on who's asking. A software engineer with a computer science degree has a completely different path than someone who's been working in hospitality for 5 years and without a formal degree. And both of those people have a different path than someone who's just getting started in their career with no real experience yet. Most content I see out there doesn't acknowledge that. It kind of just says you need to get a job and apply for a visa, which I sometimes say on my Instagram Reels, but I'm trying to make a longer YouTube video to explain everything this time. Which, yes, okay, but that also completely skips over the part where your background determines which visa you can get, which jobs are realistic targets, and what your actual timeline looks like. So that's what this video is, a clear, honest breakdown of the three main groups I see people fall into and what the actual path forward looks like for each one. Let's get into it. So real quick, why am I making this now in 2026? A few reasons. First, I've genuinely seen people waste a lot of time going down the wrong path because they were following advice meant for someone in a different situation. That's frustrating to watch, and I want to help people avoid it. Second, hiring in Japan is actually changing in some meaningful ways right now. Labor shortages are getting more severe, as I'm sure you all see on the news. The government is expanding visa categories, and there are more English-friendly roles available than there were 3 or 4 years ago. So this is a genuinely good time to be thinking about this strategically. And third, look, I'm not going to pretend I don't have a newsletter and a job board. I do. I built them because I found the existing resources lacking. So I have a reason to want people to understand this stuff clearly. All right, let's talk about the three groups that people usually fall into. When I look at the people who reach out to me, almost everyone fits into one of three profiles. Group one is people who have a university degree and some relevant work experience. This is actually the profile Japan's work visa system was more or less designed for. Doesn't mean it's easy, but the pathway is clear. Group two is people who don't have a traditional university degree, but they do have meaningful work experience in their field. This group has to be a lot more strategic about which visa category they're targeting and how they document their background. And then group three is people who are just starting out. No degree, no professional experience. This group's most realistic path looks pretty different from the other two. We're talking education first, probably in Japan, before a work visa becomes a realistic option. I was actually in group three when I first moved here. I did university here, and I found a job after that. So you could do it, even if you don't have any experience or university degree. Now, I want you to take a second to think about which one you are, because everything else in this video flows from that. Okay, so why does this distinction matter so much? Because Japan doesn't have one single work visa. What most people picture when they think of working in Japan, working at a Japanese company or an international company based there, doing office work, engineering, sales, whatever, that falls under the engineering / specialist in humanities / international services visa, which I was on for a while as well. And that visa has specific requirements tied to your educational background and your experience. Your path also depends on what industry you're targeting and to a lesser extent, your Japanese language ability. Although recently there have been some changes this month of April where you may need to have N2 Japanese and be able to prove it if you're working for specific positions that require Japanese, but that is up to your company that's sponsoring you. If they deem Japanese necessary, then you will also need to have N2 Japanese, which is kind of insane. They just did that recently. Now, language skills can unlock more opportunities, and I do recommend learning Japanese, obviously, but they're not always required, especially in tech or international business roles. The point is, before you start applying to jobs in Japan or researching visa options, you need to understand which visa you're even eligible for. That's the starting point. Before I go deeper, let me just set some expectations. This video is meant to give you a clear picture of what's realistic. I'm going to be honest about difficulty and timelines because I think that's more useful than, hyping it up and making it sound like it's really easy, because it's not. What this is not, it is not legal immigration advice. I am not an immigration lawyer. For the specifics of your situation, especially if it's complicated, talk to an actual professional. It's also not a shortcut. There are no hacks here. And all three of the paths I'm going to talk about are valid. There's no shame in being in group 2 or 3. I was in group 3. These are just different starting points. Okay, let's zoom out and talk about why timing matters right now. So before I break down each group, let me give you the context for why now is actually a meaningful time to start thinking about this. Japan is dealing with something that's genuinely unprecedented in the modern world, a shrinking population that's been declining for over a decade now. More than 29% of Japan's population is 65 or older. Incredible, I know. The working age population is getting smaller every single year, and by 2040, estimates suggest Japan will need something like 6.7 million foreign workers just to sustain its economy at current levels. I think we're around maybe 4 million now. That's not my number, that comes from projections based on Japan's own government data. So what does this mean practically? The Japanese government has been expanding visa categories to bring in more foreign workers. We know that. The Specified Skilled Worker Visa, the SSW visa, now covers more industries than it did when it launched. I think it's like up to 24 industries now or something like that. International companies in Japan are actively building out English-friendly hiring processes. I'm part of a startup that's trying to do that exact same thing, or at least I'm trying to implement it in the company that I'm part of. And the government is putting pressure on companies to be more open to overseas candidates. The opportunity is real, but it's not automatic. You can't just show up and expect to find your footing. The labor shortage creates more open doors, obviously, but you still need to bring the right keys, the right information. You still need to be able to unlock those, right? So we'll get more specific here. So group one, you have a degree and work experience. This is the most straightforward path into Japan's work visa system. Not easy, but it is straightforward. The primary visa you're targeting is engineer/specialist in humanities/international services visa. This is what the majority of white-collar foreign workers in Japan hold. I held it previous as well. The baseline requirement is a 4-year university degree, usually, and having 2 to 3+ years of experience also makes you a significantly stronger candidate. Your next steps are: start actively job hunting through Japan-specific boards, build relationships with companies that sponsor visas. I'm gonna bring it up again. JapanJobscan.com I think is a good place to start because it aggregates listings from across the major Japan job boards so you're not manually checking 8 different sites. Japanese language skills help everywhere, but there are definitely English-friendly roles, especially in tech, finance, and international sales, where you can get in without Japanese. Now, group 2 is no degree, but you do have solid work experience. This group has to be more strategic. Japan's visa system is heavily degree-oriented, which is a bit of a legacy design issue, in my opinion. Without a degree, the standard rule for the engineering/humanities visa is that you need 10 years of direct, relevant work experience in your field. That sounds like a lot, and it is, but here's where it gets more kind of nuanced, right? So first, some sectors have alternative routes. The specified skilled worker visa doesn't require a degree. It requires passing a skills test and meeting industry-specific requirements. IT fields have additional pathways through certain certifications. Second, how you document and frame your experience really matters. Be very specific, be thorough, and make the connection between your experience and the role you're targeting as explicit as possible. If you're in group 2, your job right now is to figure out whether your experience count qualifies you for the engineering specialist humanities visa, or whether the SSW path might be more accessible in your industry. Now, group 3, no degree and you're early in your career. I want to be very direct here. The direct work visa path from abroad is essentially closed if you have neither a degree nor significant relevant experience. The requirements just don't leave room for it in most categories. Here's the realistic path. For most people in this group, which I was in that group, it starts with education, specifically going to Japan to study. I went through a language school, and so a language school is often the first step, then a vocational school, or a Japanese university. You can also do foreign universities with Japanese campuses, technically. So like Temple University, Lakeland University, those types of universities are also something you can do in terms of education here, and those classes are all in English, if that's helpful for you. So this gets you a student visa, it gets you into the country, and it gives you the time to build both the skills and the experience you need. For the language school, they recently changed it so that you need proof of, I think, N5 or N4 Japanese, or proof of like 200 hours of study before they give you a student visa associated with a language school. So please double check that just in case, because I do remember that changing recently. I know that sounds like a long game, and it is. We're talking 2 to 4 years realistically, but here's the thing. The people I know who went this route tend to have the deepest roots in Japan of anyone right here, me. They actually learned Japanese properly, they built real networks, and if you're in group 3, don't be discouraged. Just be honest with yourself about the timeline and make a proper plan. So now you know which group you're in and which visa path you're likely targeting, but where do you actually find jobs and how do you stay up to date? When it comes to job hunting, you want to be where Japan-focused employers actually post. I'm gonna say it again, JapanJobscan.com is what I'd start with. I built it because I was spending too much time jumping between job boards. It takes all these different kind of, job boards and ATSs and has them all in one place. It aggregates all the jobs for you. I made sure to especially put international companies on there that potentially have positions in English or that don't require Japanese. For staying informed, I recommend Foreign Professional, my newsletter. It's where I cover hiring trends, visa policy updates, and real stories from people navigating this process. If you're not subscribed, the link is in the description. Beyond that, the Japan Times covers immigration news pretty well, and communities like r/moving to Japan and r/teaching in Japan can be genuinely useful. The honest truth about Japan hiring from abroad is that for most people, this is a 6 to 18th month process minimum. That might feel deflating, but I think it's more useful to know that upfront so you can plan accordingly. So set milestones, not just goals. Get a job in Japan is a goal, but apply to 10 companies this month and follow up on all of them is a milestone. The people who make consistent progress are the ones who will break it down like that. I just want to say again, all 3 paths are valid. The worst thing you can do is spend months questioning whether your starting point is good enough. It is, know where you are, make a plan from there, and move. Great, let me just summarize everything here. So Japan has multiple real pathways for people wanting to work here, right? They're not equal in terms of difficulty or timeline, but they're all real. Group 1, degree plus experience. You're targeting the engineering/humanities visa, focus on job boards, employer sponsorship, and if possible, some Japanese study in parallel. Group 2, no degree but experience. You need the 10-year rule for the engineering humanities visa or the SSW visa path. Group 3 is starting from scratch. The study path is your most realistic entry point. It's a longer road, but it work. Japan's labor shortage is creating genuine opportunities that didn't exist 5 years ago. But those opportunities go to people who approach this with the right strategy for their specific situation. So here's what I want you to do after this video. Figure out which group you're in and then go deep on that specific path. Stop trying to find a universal answer because there isn't one. Your answer depends on your background. Subscribe to the Foreign Professional newsletter. Hey, if you want to stay current on what's actually happening in the Japan job market, the link is in the description. You can also check out japanjobscan.com, which I think is really good, obviously, to start getting a feel for what's actually being hired for right now. And if you'd like to, you can drop your group in the comments, 1, 2, or 3. Tell me where you're starting from, and if you have a specific question, ask it. I'll read through the comments and try to respond where I can. All right, that is everything. If this was useful, please subscribe. I post regularly about Japan careers and the Japan hiring market. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.